Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
New on Curiosity Stream. How do you connect a 16th century potato to limitless energy production? Could Napoleon's toothpick have a direct link to a machine that predicts the future? And how can a 1700s conch shell chart a course to humans connecting their brains to the internet? James Burke's visionary series Connections returns for a new generation. Experience all new Connections. With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com.
Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
Hi guys, this is Elena Grace. Welcome to I've Been Thinking. First of all, happy July and happy 4th of July weekend. I love celebrating the 4th of July for many reasons, but one of my top reasons is that this is one of the only times all year that my dad will drink. And I love seeing that. It is really fun. And he's going to be really mad I said that. But this weekend, I'm going to hang out with my family. That was me slapping my knee because I'm super excited. I'm going to hang out with my family and Adam. And and Winnie, of course. And I'm just really excited for that. So let me know what you guys are doing this weekend. Are you having fun? Whatever. Hopefully having fun, but safely, because we are still in the middle of a global pandemic. But also, July is my birthday month. So that is exciting for everybody, or it should be. It's very exciting for my roommates and my parents and Adam. But it's exciting for you too, hopefully, again, because that means that we're definitely going to do a get to know me podcast episode probably around my birthday weekend. So I'm excited to do that. I am going to open it up on Instagram for questions to be sent in if y'all have any questions about me. And then I'm going to get some fun questions off the internet too, and then have maybe Allison or Adam or somebody interview me. So that'll be really cute, I think. But I think that is all the business I have for you today, guys. So let's just go ahead and jump in. Today, we're going to be doing a book club episode about The Last American Man by Elizabeth Gilbert. Again, Elizabeth Gilbert is the author of Eat, Pray, Love and several other best-selling books, both fiction and nonfiction. She's awesome. She's an incredible author. And then Eustace Conway is an American outdoorsman and activist. So I didn't even think about this when I chose this book as the second in our book club series. Also, I'm sorry if you can hear Winnie. She's being needy for pets right now. But I didn't think about this when I chose this book for our book club series. But as I was researching and just kind of seeing what other people had written or said online about The Last American Man, I came across another book club based in Boston who also read The Last American Man as a follow-up to Wild, which was last month's book. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. No way. That's so funny that it worked out like that. And like, okay, it makes sense. I didn't really think about it this way, but they're both about being in the wild and connecting to nature, blah, 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 all that good stuff. But then I continued reading their explanation for it, and they said that as Wild was an exploration of Cheryl Strayed's image of herself and her womanhood and strength and identity in her femininity, The Last American Man is very much an examination of American masculinity through the lens of Eustace Conway's life. So how crazy is that I literally did that on accident, but they are so related in that way. The Last American Man is also most definitely my most earmarked book of them all. More so than Wild, more so than Hemingway's A Movable Feast, which is one of my favorites. I mean, more so than textbooks for sure, because I didn't even crack those half the time. But it is just, it has moved me in such a visceral way that even just thinking about the book brings me this sense of joy, but also this sense of inspiration and like a desire for change, a desire to go out and just do things, you know? Elizabeth Gilbert wrote this book. It's a memoir in a way, to share the absolutely true story of Eustace Conway in context to who he is as a person, the world he grew up in, and the world we reside in now, as well as the world that he's created for himself. In ways, he is poised as this mythical creature who challenges everything he sees, but especially ideals of modernity and masculinity. She also, however, highlights his inevitable humanity and really doesn't sugarcoat his flaws. Eustace Conway's absolutely unbelievable life, from riding a horse cross-country in just over 100 days to founding and living solely inside of a primitive camp in the North Carolina mountains, to dumpster diving for groceries and starring on a television show. His life is an enigma. He is an enigma. And he represents this ideal of masculinity, but not in the way that you might imagine. Eustace is not a burly caricature of a logger mountain man with big broad shoulders and a clean-cut beard that he trims with his axe every morning. You know, he rather looks like a Willie Nelson kind of hippie with shaggy long hair that sometimes he braids. He's thin and wiry, which is not to say that he's not strong, because he certainly is. But he's just not that image of, quote, masculine that we have been fed and coerced into believing in. Beyond his looks, though, Eustace is really not much of the toxic version of masculinity that we imagine, that we have been led to normalize, maybe. He writes poetry for his lovers, of which there have been quite a few, but each seems to take a big chunk of his heart with them. And, you know, he doesn't love them and leave them. In fact, most of them leave him, and many of them still say after the fact how much they loved him, or how much they even still love him to this day. They just find him impossible to live with because he's apparently incredibly particular. And honestly, going from modern life to a primitive camp, that's got to be a huge shock. So in that sense, I really can't blame them. Eustace cares for his animals dearly, and he worships the earth and nature and everything it gives us with reverence and with thanks. He doesn't ever take more than he needs. And I would argue that his most toxic traits come from his specific ideas of what he believes his perfect wife to be. And thus, that's one of the reasons that he can't keep a woman. And how frustrated he gets when people don't respond well to his style of communication. I think that, honestly, those are probably, from what I know of him, two of the worst things about him. You know, he seems to be very, very set in certain ways, which honestly we all are to an extent. And he has difficulty budging on those, like a lot of difficulty. But then in many ways, he's very open to collaboration and compromise. So he's just kind of choosy about it. But, you know, that can cause big issues depending on what you're unwilling to budge on, you know? So why is all of this important? And perhaps more importantly, the question, why is his masculinity the main question? Why is the big topic here not his activism or his choice to build and live in a primitive camp, or even his choice to feed himself with dumpster fruits and vegetables when his provisions aren't quite enough? I think that his masculinity is the root here, because in this world of toxic images, both of men and women, we have this perception of who a man should be, how he should look, how he should act. And in many ways, our culture as humans has grown up with that, from the idea that a man should be the warrior or the hunter, to the images of rough and tumble cowboys or of brave soldiers on the battlefield. I think that every child grows up with some image in their mind of what they want to be, and how they see themselves represented in popular culture certainly reflects that. So for children and young adults then, the ones that he went and spoke to their classes in school or to their Boy Scout camp or whatever, and then also for every person who reads this book, to have this entirely different image of what and who a manly man, quote unquote, can be, that is revolutionary if you think about it. A man who builds cabins from the logs he felled with his own two hands is the same man who then lays in those cabins with his lover, and he reads her beautiful poetry that he wrote just for her. He grows his food and reveres the ground that produced it, and he weeps openly for his dying horse and for misuse of the earth. You know, that's just kind of unheard of, guys. It's this very specific, very uncharacteristic in popular perception, I guess, idea, personification of masculinity. This book, though, it really personifies this man that could be revered as this untouchable enigma if you wanted to place him on that pedestal. And like I said, it personifies him and makes him real, but at the same time, it does place him on a pedestal as a challenger of who we expect men to be and what we expect of the modern person in general as well, I think. That dichotomy, that back and forth between his reality and his mythos, that is what makes the book so intriguing, I think. And that's something that Elizabeth Gilbert just did so incredibly with her writing, because at no point did she make any of this up. This is all truth. And I think that that's so important because, yeah, this is who Eustace Conway is, but also Elizabeth Gilbert's incredible writing style was able to portray him so beautifully without having to falsify anything. Does that make sense? You know, this book would be fascinating anyway, like I said, because Eustace himself is an incredibly interesting and active man, and he's got so many adventures under his belt. But Elizabeth Gilbert's approach, like I said, her writing style, the way that she sees him as this real person, but she also reveres him in his own unique way, that dichotomy is what makes the book just so much better. So now that I've talked to you about Eustace and who he is, how he challenges but simultaneously sets an example of an ideal romanticized masculinity, I want to share with you just a few of my favorite passages, and these once again highlight Elizabeth Gilbert's incredible writing, but also who Eustace is as a person. So what I did is I went through my bookmarked pages, my earmarked pages, and found some of my favorites. This is from pages 94 and 95. He does seem to be a hippie at first glance, what with his long hair and his thick beard and his back to nature ethic and the friendly bumper sticker on his truck that reads, "Friends come in all colors." That said, Eustace is actually quite conservative. He loathes drugs and drug users, has no patience with sexual swingers, and sometimes has been accused of cherishing discipline over freedom. If you wanted to take his gun from him, for instance, you'd probably find yourself prying it out of his cold, dead fingers. So no, our Eustace Conway is not exactly a mobile hallucination or a tripped-out foot soldier from some army of clowns. But what Eustace does share with the hippie utopian dreamers of the 1960s, as well as with their romantic utopian ancestors of the 1860s, is this most American of ideals, that society is both capable of transforming and willing to transform. If you can get yourself a piece of land and some serious motivation, you can start a small project that will grow and inspire a massive change across an entire country. Eustace Conway, like any good utopian, was not afraid to try this. He was not afraid to claim that he had all the answers, and he was not afraid to formulate an entirely new worldview. Next, I'm jumping to page 174. Oh no, I skipped it. Okay, there we go. So, for a little context here, Eustace and his beloved horse are riding down from the mountains back to his camp, Turtle Island. He had just ridden Hobo across the country, and they're riding down from the mountains, and Hobo trips on a rock, a tiny little rock. Hobo took a funny little step and broke his leg, and the femur snapped nearly in half. "No," Eustace said, leaping off his horse. "No, please, no." But Hobo couldn't put any weight on the leg. He was confused and kept turning around to look at the injured limb, and at Eustace, hoping for an answer to what had gone wrong. Eustace left Hobo there alone and ran to his office, where he made desperate phone calls to his mentors, the hillbilly Hoy Moritz and the Mennonite Johnny Rule. He called every veterinarian he knew and every farrier, but when he described what had happened, all they could do was confirm what he already knew, that nothing could be done. Eustace would have to shoot his friend. after all they'd been through together, to have this happen on a fine afternoon at home when they were almost in sight of the barn. Eustace got his shotgun and went back to the horse. Hobo was standing there, as before, looking at his leg and then at Eustace, trying to make sense of it. "I'm so sorry, Hobo," Eustace said, "and I love you so much." And then he shot Hobo in the head. The horse buckled to the ground, and Eustace collapsed with him, sobbing. He clung to Hobo's neck as the horse died, telling him about all the good times they'd had together, and about how brave he always was, and thanking him. How could this have happened? They were only steps away from the barn. Later in the day, and this was the hardest part, Eustace returned to cut off Hobo's mane and tail. These would mean much to him in the years to come. Maybe if Eustace ever got a horse someday who was worthy, he could take strands from the mane and tail of Hobo and weave them into a bridle for the new animal, and this would be a fine tribute. To make that first cut, though, to disturb his friend's body with a knife, was almost impossible, and Eustace cried as if the weight of his grief would fell every tree in the woods. He left Hobo where he'd fallen. He wanted the vultures to eat him. He knew that the Native Americans believed vultures to be the sacred transport, the means by which a spirit is delivered from the earth up into the sky. So Eustace left Hobo there, where the birds could find him, which means that, even today, whenever Eustace is working outside and sees vultures drifting in the air, he looks up and says hello, because he knows that's where Hobo lives now. That's one of my favorites, mainly because it shows Eustace's just vulnerability and his absolute love for, I think, most all things natural, at least. And then it also shows how he clings to spirituality and how important that idea is to him, and how I think that a lot of men want to at least make it seem like something like that wouldn't bother them, or that they don't need that kind of thing. But, again, Eustace isn't our pop culture idea of masculine. So next, I'm going to jump back to page 64 really quick. Eustace finished hiking the Appalachian Trail in September 1981, right around his 20th birthday. It had taken him 4.5 months to complete the journey. He wrote himself a letter of congratulations, a dramatic letter such as a man can only write on his 20th birthday, proud and earnest and swollen with amazement over the magnitude of what he'd just completed. The sun has gone behind the ridge, and the shadows are starting to play games in the forest. This is the last night on the Appalachian Trail, a long journey of always and forever. It was so long ago I started, it seems only a foggy dream. My ways have changed. I have become a man. In the Indian way, I have taken a new name. It is Eagle Chaser. I am aspiring to the highest goals and morals of the king of the winged beings. Many tales I can tell. I've seen many places, I've seen many people, all different but mostly good. I have learned to pray often and have accepted many gifts from the most holy provider. I believe God helped plan this trip before I even knew of it. My reason for doing the trail started out fairly simple and grew in depth with time and experience. I originally wanted to get close to nature in a good, wholesome way, and number 2, to find more of myself. I believe that I have done well at both of these. I am very satisfied. I wish the light of day would give me more strength to finish these written thoughts, but the night is rising and the shadows are no longer visible. The night animals are out, and I must go forth into the cycle that I have chosen. Eustace R. Conway. The man wrote letters like that to himself. Are you kidding me? First of all, that is so dramatic and absolutely something I do and have done since I was a kid. Like, I write these super dramatic journal entries when I do it, and it's like, one day when you're reading this, blah, 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 whatever. I relate so very much to how he wrote that, but also to what he said about finding yourself, about, you know, seeing all these new places and people and learning to pray and wanting to see new things, but also to find yourself as you do that. I mean, and in that way, I think that Eustace is this very relatable character. You know, I mean, he's a real person, but he's very, very relatable because he has gone through what we've all gone through, trying to search and find ourselves. And just the version of himself that he found and was most happy with. And that's what really matters, is the version that brings you the most joy, because I believe that joy is what matters most in life. But the version of you that brings you the most joy, his is just very different from the typical. And that's not a bad thing at all. And I think that maybe he could inspire us to be a bit more atypical. So, lastly, very last one, page 258. This is in reference to a young man who came to work with Eustace at the camp. Eustace used his time with Dave to try to have him understand the fundamental essence of his philosophy, which centered on mindfulness. There is no way, Eustace said to Dave, that you can have a decent life as a man if you aren't awake and aware every moment. Show up for your own life, he said. Don't pass your days in a stupor, content to swallow whatever watery ideas modern society may bottle feed you through the media, satisfied to slumber through life in an instant gratification sugar coma. The most extraordinary gift you've been given is your own humanity, which is about consciousness. So honor that consciousness. That is just, I mean, I could go on with more of what he says here, but I think that that is the perfect summation of, first of all, Eustace's philosophy. Like he said, he is very much about finding yourself, but also being aware and grounding yourself in the world and in your consciousness, and you know, all of those things. But I found that personally to be a really, I can't say revolutionary idea, but to hear somebody say it the way he did, I think was shocking in a good way, maybe, because it's something that I have always felt and said to myself in one way or another. And you know, it's not like I've not read that kind of idea before, but the way Eustace speaks and the way that he exemplifies it makes it that much more poignant. So I did this episode purposefully in such a way that while I discuss Eustace for who he is and the ways that he challenges our perceptions of masculinity and modernity, you are still encouraged to read the book. I thought over last week's episode, and while I'm happy with the way I did it, not last week's episode, last month's episode, while I'm happy with the way that I did that, I didn't feel that the whole question and answer thing was quite as appropriate here. Not that Cheryl's story doesn't deserve to be read just as much as Eustace's, but I wanted to encourage you to read the book, of course, and I felt that Eustace's mysticism befits this kind of more vague, rambling a bit approach than the very straightforward nature of who Cheryl is. Perhaps I'll keep kind of more of this format moving forward. Perhaps I'll go back and forth. I'm not really positive, but I guess we'll see about that. Guys, please do grab a copy of The Last American Man and give it a good read. It is incredible. I absolutely devoured it the first time I read it, and I just cannot recommend it enough. So guys, comment on today's Instagram post once you've listened to this episode and let me know what you thought. Did this discussion inspire you to grab the book? Did it make you question images of masculinity or of what you consider to be masculine maybe? Please let me know. Follow us on Instagram at I've Been Thinking Pod. Of course, that way you can comment and keep up with our posts and everything. And then subscribe to us also wherever you listen to your podcasts so you make sure that you don't miss anything. And if you're on Apple, please go leave us a rating and a review too. That would be so helpful. Ideally, 5-star. I won't hold it against you if you don't give me a 5-star rating, but I might. All right, guys. So again, thanks so much for listening. I have loved talking to you about this. And again, I hope you enjoy. I hope you all have a great weekend and a great time and a safe time. Because remember, we are still in the middle of a global pandemic celebrating the 4th of July. I'll talk at you guys next week. Bye.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
Wake up at Holiday Inn Express to a can't-miss breakfast that's free with every stay. Count on all the hot, fresh coffee you need and an incredible breakfast buffet that has something for everyone, like eggs, cinnamon rolls, and even hot, fresh pancakes with all the toppings you crave. Next time, do yourself a favor and stay at a Holiday Inn Express with a can't-miss breakfast that's free with every stay. So, when you wake up at Holiday Inn Express, you'll wake up happy, a part of IHG Hotels and Resorts.